Hey everybody, it's Barry, and I'm going to teach you guys today on how to make country wine. So, what is country wine? Country wine is wine that is really made from anything. Traditionally, we all think of wine as the fermented juice of grapes, but really you can turn anything into country wine. Usually we use fruits, but you can also use vegetables. You can use flowers. You can kind of use anything. And the concept is really simple. The way wine is made is really you start with by making a sweet juice, and you take fruit and you smash it and you extract the juice, and then you take that juice, and a lot of times because fruits are not a lot of fruits are not as sweet as grapes are. They do not have enough naturally occurring sugar in them to make an alcohol level that you would really want in wine. So the way we make up for that is by adding sugar. That's right, sugar, just like you have in your cupboard. The more sugar we add, the more the more food that's going to give the yeast that we're going to inoculate into this sweet juice. And what that is going to do is going to leave a higher alcohol by volume level in our finished wine once it's done fermenting. Now, how do we know what the alcohol level is going to be in our finished wine? So there's a tool called a hydrometer, and here's a hydrometer right here. It's actually a really simple piece of equipment. You can get one for not even 10 bucks. And what this does is it measures how much sugar is in a solution using the concept of buoyancy. And then what I can do is I can use what's called an alcohol by volume calculator. And you can just find one online really easily. And once I know there's different scales. Sorry, let me back up. There's different scales that a hydrometer can measure. And the most common one that winemakers and home brewers use is what's called specific gravity. And that's really is what's measuring how much sugar is in the solution. And it's basically doing that by comparing it to how much heavier it is than plain water. So, anyways, without boring you guys with too much science, if I know that all wines are going to finish on this hydrometer at around 0.995 or even 0.990, it really won't ferment any more than that. So I know that's going to be my final gravity, my ending number. So in order to figure out what the alcohol by volume is going to be, I can use the brewer's calculator and enter in what my starting gravity is going to be, what the number was when I started this wine before I start turning it into alcohol, and know that, like, say if I have a starting gravity of 1.070 and it finishes at 0.995, that is going to be about 10% alcohol by volume on the finished dry wine. So what I've done right here is I've already gone ahead and I've extracted the juice, and I did that by smashing it here with my stick. I've got a fruit press, but I'm sure a lot of people don't. But this is a nice, easy way to do it. I start my wines always in a food safe bucket. It's food safe if it's got a number 1 or number 2 on the plastic on the bottom. If it doesn't have number 1 or number 2, it is not food safe plastic, and don't use it to make wine. Glass is always good. That's fine as well. But for primary, ideally you want to start it in this plastic bucket like this. Once it starts turning into alcohol, we're going to move it to a secondary container, to a glass container like this, because really once it starts turning into alcohol, oxygen becomes our enemy. In the very beginning, we kind of want some oxygen to feed the yeast and kind of help it along, but as soon as it starts becoming wine, we want to immediately move it over here, and then from that point on, we're doing our best to keep oxygen away from this. So I've already gone and I've adjusted my sugar level, or as I'll say, my specific gravity on this wine to 1.080, which I haven't done the math yet, but I'm guessing that's probably going to make it come out somewhere around 11% alcohol on the finished wine. The next thing I did is I adjusted the pH, and pH is really important in winemaking for really a multitude of reasons, but really the most important reason is you need to know that your wine is acidic enough so no unwanted microorganisms can start growing in here. If it's not acidic enough, it can become ripe for kind of nasty bacteria and funguses and things like that, which can ruin your wine or even make you really sick. So ideally in winemaking, what you're looking for is you need a pH between 3.2 and 3.6. And this is sort of the optimal range for yeast to flourish and also to make sure it's acidic enough that nothing gross is going to start growing in there. Now, the lower something is on the pH scale, actually the more acid it has in it, the more acidic it is. The higher something is on the pH scale, the more basic it is, the more alkaline it is. This wine right here, I've already gone ahead and I've adjusted the acid, and I did that by using, because this is a fruit wine, I use malic acid. If you buy, like a fruit wine kit, you're going to get something called acid blend. And acid blend is like a mix of malic acid, tartaric acid, and citric acid. It's great for fruit wine and things like that. Don't worry about it. You can use that. Just do a little bit at a time. You don't want to make it too acidic. Once you get your pH lower than about 3.2, it's going to start to taste really, really sharp. And then you can actually run into some problems with fermentation. The yeast might not like it. You're going to get some funky smells, some funky odors. So you don't want to do that. So first what we've done is we've extracted our juice. We've then gone ahead, we've adjusted our specific gravity to get the alcohol by volume number that we want in our finished wine. We've then gone ahead and taken our pH meter and measured the pH, adjusted the pH to where we want it. The next thing I did is I added in some yeast nutrient. There's some different products called yeast nutrient, yeast energizer. They kind of do different things, but these are really important in country wine because you want to make sure that your yeast is happy and healthy during fermentation. Otherwise, you can have what's called a stuck fermentation. The yeast will stall out. It's not going to ferment all the way down. You're going to have a really unfinished sweet wine in the end. Or you just get some, really funky aromas. I think beer brewers refer to it as rhino farts. And it can really stink. I've had it happen before. I walk in my room here and it's bad. It's real bad. And then your wine smells bad, and there's things you can do to get rid of it. But so that's the next thing you want to do is add some nutrients. So now that we've done that, the next thing I want to talk about is sterilization. And that's actually probably one of the first things I should talk about because anything that touches your wine should always be sterile. Now, how do we do that? I use something called star sand, and what this is a product that is basically phosphoric acid, which is the ingredient in Coca-Cola that will take the paint off of a car. And it's a food-safe ingredient, but it will kind of kill everything. And I have a big tub, and I will just mix up a bunch of hot water, and I will put in the star sand in a measured amount. It's only about 1 ounce per 5 gallons. It goes really, really far. And I basically clean all of my tools with that, and then you just let them air dry. You do not have to rinse it. You do not actually want to rinse it. That phosphoric acid will essentially just dry and evaporate up, and it will be left with nothing. You don't want to be using soap. You don't want to use dish soap. You definitely don't want to use bleach, anything like that. Some people might tell you it's okay. I wouldn't recommend it. There's some bad things that can happen. You definitely don't want soap. You don't even want the slightest trace of dish soap or something like that getting in your wine because it can really mess things up. That's the first thing always. Keep everything really, really sterile. So everything that you're seeing here and everything from this point forward that ever touches my wine is going to be cleaned first with this stuff. So now that I've prepped my juice, or as us winemakers call it, must, M-U-S-T, must. I've measured my specific gravity, or my starting gravity. I know now what the alcohol by volume is going to be. I know what the pH is. I've adjusted my nutrients. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sterilize this must. And I'm going to do that with something called potassium metabisulfite. It's more commonly known as Campton tablets. That's kind of what you see here. I have it in powder form, and I actually like to use the powder form If you buy a winemaking kit, you're going to kind of get it in these little pills. And what this is these are sulfites. I mean, when you buy a bottle of wine, you're usually going to see that little asterisk at the bottom of the label that says this wine contains sulfites. And the reason why wines contain sulfites is this is a way that winemakers use to sterilize their must completely. And it's safe as long as you know what you're doing. You don't want to use way too much because that can become toxic. Although the threshold is pretty high, and we're not going to approach anywhere near that. So the reason why Camden tablets are nice for home winemakers is because this is a measured amount. Basically, 1 tablet is good for 1 gallon of wine. So since I've got a 1 gallon batch here, I would go ahead and crush up 1 tablet and then add this here. And what this is going to do, once I do that immediately, is that those sulfites will start being released, and that's just going to basically create a cloud of, like, I think it's a sulfur dioxide, which is just a cloud of death. It's going to kill everything in its path. And what will happen though is that will dissipate over about 24 hours. So as soon as I add this sulfites to this must right here, I need to give it I stir it really good, and then I give it 24 hours and I let it rest and I do nothing. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back tomorrow and I'm going to inoculate it with yeast, and I'm also going to add something called pectic enzyme, which is going to help more with juice extraction and clearing the wine as well. So I think that's kind of all for today. I think I'm going to go ahead and sterilize this now with my potassium metabisulfite, or my Camden tablets, and then I'll see you guys tomorrow. Hope everybody's well, and take care. Bye.